Hi, it's Mandy from Mandy's Cards. Thanks for joining me today. Today we're making this gorgeous watercolour card with the Beautiful Moments stamp set by Stampin' Up. We're using the girl in the bottom right, the grass, the birds and the thinking of you sentiment. I'm also using a card base which is 5 by 7 inches scored at 3.5, a piece of Melon Mambo cardstock which is 3.25 by 4 3/4 inches, a layer of black card which is 2 7/8 by 4 3/8 inches, and a piece of smooth watercolour paper which is cut at 2 3/4 by 4 1/4 inches. I'm also using some Stampin' Right markers, all different colours. Going to use some Versamark ink, an embossing buddy and some copper embossing powder. I thought the copper would just help the image pop and also give it a little bit of shine. You also need a spray bottle of water, some liquid glue, some Stampin' Dimensionals, tear and tape or strong adhesive, and a bone folder. I've also got some paper towel and some scissors, tiny bit of cutting, and I also have another little piece for the sentiment of white cardstock which is 7/8 of an inch by 1 5/8 of an inch. Now just inking up the girl with the Versamark, and we're going to stamp her down on the watercolour piece of paper. If you notice, I forgot to use my embossing buddy, and we'll see a nice big fingerprint there. Super exciting, but then, you know, I gotta make mistakes, so you know how to make them too. Put the embossing powder on, tap it off, there's that fingerprint. Isn't that lovely? Now I've got to watch that cool thing where the heat melts the powder and makes it nice and shiny. And that's so cool. I love watching that happen every time. There we go, all done. Now we'll make sure for the next bit of stamping that I get lots of embossing powder on there, gets rid of the fingerprints and the static. Put the grass on the right there and on the left, and then we'll put the birds up in the left top corner. Pretty thankful I got these up the right way. Sometimes a bit hard to figure all that out, but it worked this time, so feeling thankful. And no fingerprints, at least not there. I think I'm pretty right there. Oh, there we go. Tip that off. Same. Put that aside. Oh, and I forgot. Better do the sentiment too while I'm at it. I'm going to hit the camera with my head here. You watch it. Here we go. Dodge. That's because I was trying to fit this sentiment on this piece of paper and line it up straight. I thought, no, I'll just do it upside down. It worked. It's fine. Sorry about the wibble. Put all the powder on that. That's fabulous stamps by Stampin' Up. Always give you such fantastic impressions. Now I'm just holding that with a paintbrush, actually, the end of a paintbrush, so I don't burn my fingers. Now I don't need the purples that I used in my first card, but I'm using the Granny Apple Green there to do the grass heads. But you know, I was thinking it would also be nice as wheat, so like golden colours or lavender fields. You could have a beautiful lavender field there. Maybe next time, I think. Putting some garden green in there too, just for a little bit of contrast. Just a bit. and some soft suede there in the hair. Make it a brown haired girl. Some petal pink for the skin. I love that colour for skin. It just suits quite nicely. Now this is balmy blue. I'm putting quite a bit of the balmy blue down this time because in my last card I spread it out a bit more and put a bit less, and I found that there wasn't quite enough blue for me, so I thought this time I'll make sure I've put quite a bit down. I've also got the Flirty Flamingo here for the dress. Most of the spots covered, and a bit of Melon Mambo there just for some shadow. Now you don't have to be neat. It really doesn't help this kind of card to be neat. It works quite nicely to put it down, and it helps you get a card done a lot quicker than if you were trying to be really neat, so I reckon that's a great plus. Now I want to just give that a good spritz, but you don't want to overdo it. You don't want to wash the paper. You just want to make sure all your ink is just a bit wet so it can move. While we're waiting for that to dry, I'll stick my sentiment down onto that black scrap of card using that needle nose bottle from the cheap shop there. It's actually pretty good. If it gets clogged up, sometimes you just need to stick a pin down the top of it and it's right as rain. So this is the only part where you need your scissors, and I mean you could always use your trimmer if that's your preference. I just found it was small enough that even if it wasn't quite right, it really didn't show. Just burnishing that card base, and put that piece of Melon Mambo down as the first mat, and then wait for that watercolour piece to dry. You can always use your heat tool and heat that up, but I decided this time I wanted to see how it would go if I left it on its own, so that's what I did this time. Now you can see that the watercolour paper has buckled slightly. That's why we're using the strong tape. That's why I've got my Terran tape out, and I'm going to put it on every side and some down the middle as well, and then I'm going to stick it straight down to that black piece, and that'll give it a little bit more stability and help it flatten out. And I'm going to turn it over and give it a good burnish with my bone folder and make it as flat as I can. You know what, it's not 100% flat, but by the end of the card it looks like it is, so that's fine. I was looking at that and I noticed I had a piece of Blushing Bride cardstock there next to me, and I thought, oh, the Flirty Flamingo and the Blushing Bride look really nice together, and yeah, it looks really nice. I liked the Melon Mambo too, and I'd already stuck it down, so I decided just to go with the Melon Mambo this time. I put some Stampin' Dimensionals on the back of that panel and lined it up, hit my head again on the camera I think there, just slightly. Oh dear. Put that down and I have my sentiment at the bottom. I'm just putting glue on the top half of that because it's gonna hang over the edge just slightly, but yeah, I really like the way this card turned out. Thinking of you. It's just got this beautiful ethereal, is that the right word? Ethereal look to it with the watercolour and the beautiful soft blended colours. And thinking of you, it's a fantastic sentiment for what we're all going through right now, I suppose. So yeah, thanks for joining me, and I really hope you have an amazing day. Thanks. This is just my husband playing with the camera, and I thought he was talking about two girls going off with buckets to play with sand, and they'd end up throwing it all over each other and having a fight because, you know, we have kids and, yeah, they do all sorts of fun things.